Hi, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashley Ariana, joined by the all-star Tom Jensen. It's always a good day when we can
Thanks,
have you on,
Ashley.
Tom.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. This is always a highlight for me to be talking Niners with you.
Absolutely. Speaking of Niners, short week. Just played a horrible game, which I'm gonna ask you some questions about because we've talked, but we haven't talked on air since then. But Rams game is in 2 days, coming up quick. Kyle, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Robert Saleh, they all talked today because they combined their Wednesday and Thursday practice today. They did as much of a rest day as they could yesterday. They actually don't have they did all their talking first, and they don't have full on practice until 5 today, because with it being a short week, they try to give the players as much rest as possible. Today will only be a walkthrough. Tomorrow will be an off day, and then they go into Levi South. And but I don't know if I want to call it that right now. I feel like you can call it Levi South when it feels like a game that you're gonna win. But
yeah, well, the fans are going to be there. The reports are that the Niner fans are going to be 61% of the people in the stadium.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get into the injury report because it's long. And then we can break down some of the stuff from the previous game and stuff coming up. But right off the bat, Kyle Shanahan talked today, and Brock Purdy, most importantly, would not have been able to participate today, did not participate yesterday on their hypothetical list that they are mandated by the league to do with his toe injury. So that's actually different than last week. Last week he was limited. So he's taken a step back, which in hindsight isn't a huge shocker because he was not fully ready to go and then had to go play on it. So he's more sore than he was previously. He did clarify and said that he's not as sore as he was directly after week 1 when the injury happened, but clearly much more sore than he was last week, where he was limited in practice but actually able to go out there and throw passes every day. He just, once again, wasn't really scrambling. And reports from the media, Guy Haberman, Larry Krueger, Grant, said that he was sailing a lot of his practices or his passes in practice last week, even though he was able to participate, just because he couldn't really plant his foot in the ground. This week, they're not even trying to have him throw. So, that is, I think, the most interesting part to come out of this game. In hindsight, it felt like Kyle Shanahan put a lot of pressure. He said in his press conference last week when talking about the Jags game that they have to win games like this. Obviously, if you're able to go, most players are going to push to be able to go. But knowing this Rams game was coming up and that actually they started 3-0, which is a great start. The Jags are in the AFC, so yes, is it bad to lose a game? Yeah, but every team except for the Dolphins that one year have not been undefeated and still gone to the playoffs or won Super Bowls or whatever, without having an undefeated season. If you were going to compare what game was more important to win, it's obviously the Rams game because that's an in-division game. It's also important to have your guys healthy for that game because the Rams have a roster full of talent on their defensive line. Their quarterback is, hugely talented, and their weapons are as well. I don't know if it was, it's hard to, or it's maybe unfair to criticize with hindsight, but it does seem interesting that on Thursday before last week's game, Brock Purdy said it was going to be a game time decision, that he was still hurting. And then Kyle came out and named him the starter on Friday. He pushed to play. To me, there's no question that his injury did affect his play. We'll get into it more. He makes some erratic decisions, injured or not. But there was some wide open grass that he didn't take the easy yards for. Brock Purdy, when comparing him to a quarterback like Mac Jones, who's his backup, the way that they attack the O-line deficiencies, Mac Jones gets the ball out really quick. Brock Purdy doesn't. He holds on the ball too long, in my opinion, which makes the O-line look worse. But the way that he does get out of the pressure breaking down on him is by scrambling, whether that's left, right, or just scrambling for yards, and then being able to throw the ball on the run. He can't do that when he has this toe injury. So there's obviously a much longer list. Should I go through the list first, or do you want to focus on one at a time and talk about Brock James?
Let's take one at a time. Since we're talking Purdy, we might as well talk about that.
So
in terms of starting Brock last week, I think that's what they had to do, because the reports from Santa Clara were Mac Jones was more hurt than Brock. And so Jones could have been easily worse than what Brock did. And he's got a more difficult injury to deal with also, as opposed to a toe. Toe's still hard, and a toe will still affect your mechanics as it did for Brock. Yeah. But I think that's why they did it. They didn't want to start Adrian Martinez because that's basically just conceding the game. So Kyle's not going to do that. And so he played Brock. And Brock said, I feel good. And so they trusted him. And then he played. And whenever you play on something like that, you're going to get hurt, or you're at least going to be in pain. So for this week, it's Mac Jones has been cleared. He's theoretically fully healthy and recovered now. So given that, I think he has to be the starter, since he's the one that's been in practice and he's the one that's fully healthy. Even if Brock feels better in 2 days, he's not going to be 100%. Mac Jones is. So I would start Mac Jones.
I think that's fair. It's interesting. I totally understand that no football team is going to start a game being like, we're okay with, losing this game, or we're conceding before it starts. But and this is all with hindsight. I'm very aware. I didn't say these things before, but in hindsight, since they lost the game, it's like, I wish you would have just played Adrian Martinez, because then your quarterback wouldn't be hurt. And like, also reputation, confidence wise, like, it's more than just you lost a game. It's that you're more injured, so you're more likely to lose Thursday night's game, and your confidence is shot as a football team. We saw a lot of unraveling. We don't need to get into it like in depthly, but we saw coaches screaming at each other. Fred Warner, who I think is a consummate professional, at the very end when the Jaguars were kneeling down the ball, like led with his head to try to tackle Trevor Lawrence or knock the ball out or something. The attitude just didn't seem good after in the locker room. Like some losses, it's kind of like, okay, we're we were 3-0, we're 3-1. Like, that's still good. We're going to go get them next time. That can be the vibe. That was not the vibe. The vibe was like, when they were like whispering, like, I don't want to make eye contact. I want to I feel that like this was like a confidence killer. And that's going to be a major difference, aside from injuries and player personnel and everything else, going into the Rams game. Neither one has a strategical advantage from the fact that they both played on Sunday and now they're playing on Thursday. But the Rams at least won. So they're going in like feeling good, not questioning their football team, their head coach, their quarterback, their D-line. Hey, are we never going to be able to sack a quarterback now that we don't have Nick Bosa? Like, what's going on with our coaching? Is our quarterback going to come back at some point and be healthy? Or is this just a him problem? I think like the one thing that would have saved, like would have been protected if they would have just played Martinez, is even if they lost, it's like, okay, it was our back, our third string quarterback. You could still talk yourself into the fact that you're going to do better next game.
Right.
You're like, because that's not our full effort.
Right. If you're starting Adrian Martinez, you're saying that we lose the game at the Star Spangled Banner. So and they would know that, and it would help their confidence level to know, well, no, we threw Martinez out there. We're not going to win that game. However, that said, is Kyle ever going to think ahead that far to say, I need Purdy healthy, he shouldn't play in this game? Yeah. And even though Adrian Martinez is an automatic loss, we might as well play him anyway, because the Rams game is far more important. You can say all that stuff, but
Yeah.
would Kyle ever willingly start a guy that he knows will lose the game? No.
Which,
there's no way he would ever
yeah.
consider that option in my
When
view.
you put it like that, it like I do understand, because I think a lot of football coaches would struggle with doing something like that.
Sure.
I just think it's important for everyone to remember is, like, Kyle is the head coach. He's not, because we'll get into like special teams issues and stuff. Kyle is the head coach. He's not just the offensive coordinator. Also, if he was the offensive coordinator, he would be doing badly right now. Their offense is horrible. And they cannot score in the red zone for now the second season in a row. This is not like a new thing this year. But aside from the offense not doing well, like, his whole thing is, like, if the special teams is still making blunders, if they're scoring on punt return, the Rams are scoring on punt returns, like, eventually that needs to go back to Kyle, because he's now gone through 3 special teams coordinators. Kyle is on record to the media multiple times saying that he doesn't value special teams. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't watch tape about it. Like, something about that mindset is clearly affecting the 49ers, because they are consistently, much like they're consistently one of the most injured teams in the league, and their quarterbacks, like you said last week, they were, maybe put in a possible situation. Kyle might have said, hey, I can, start my starter, who, push him to start, and maybe he has to play through injury, but the backup is also injured, and then the backup is bad. It's like, okay, well, you chose that third string, so if you don't like him, that's on you. And the reason your 2 quarterbacks are injured, there's a whole topic for this, is because you don't value the O-line. So, like, eventually these things that I feel like when you look at them just one at a time, you're like, oh, that could be a fluke, or like bad luck, or not strategically planning for the Rams game being the most important game. One of these mistakes or decisions, you're like, okay, I see how you got there. But with the amalgamation of all of them, it's like, Kyle, you're not doing a good job at like constructing a football team and directing your football team and making like strategic decisions for the overall season. You're not trying to go week to week. You're not trying to get the most offensive yards in one week.
But that's week to week is Kyle Shanahan, though.
Yeah.
If there's something that you can really tag him with, it's this. He doesn't advance plan. Kyle is about the battle. He's never about the war. And so he's focused on the next battle. And he's always going to do everything he can to win the next battle or win the next play. It's part of the reason that he's addicted to the CMC easy button, because it wins the battle.
Not anymore, by the way.
It doesn't. No,
yeah.
but
I understand.
But that's where it comes from, though,
yeah.
is that he's not planning ahead. He's just thinking in terms of what's in front of him. And so that's why you get something where he's going to say, I cannot start Adrian Martinez. We automatically lose.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Brock Purdy started. And it's unfortunate, but both quarterbacks were hurt. And part of that's the offensive line. And part of that is just they've got a flawed process. And right now, they're on pace to be the most injured team in the league again. And if so, that'll be the 3rd time since 2020 that they are the most injured team in the league. You can't just say that's bad luck. It's bad process. And Kyle refuses to fix that process.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Absolutely. So anyways, where we're at with Brock right now is it sounds like it's going to be a game time decision on Sunday. Brock was asked if, he had to play right now, tonight, would he be able to play? He said no. And then, because I'm not trying to put this all on Brock. We'll get to his decision makings with interceptions. But as far as like playing through injury and stuff, I don't think Brock is like not trying. Brock doesn't want to be hurt, and I think he has grit. And if he could play, he would push himself to play. So he kind of had a good attitude about it. Said, if it was tonight, I wouldn't be able to. Luckily, it's not tonight. I have 2 days. Mac Jones was asked if he could play tonight, or if the game was today, would he be able to play? He said yes, but that he would be wearing a knee brace. He did play part of the game against the Cardinals with a knee brace on. Didn't seem to limit him too much. He spoke on it kind of limiting his ability to move out of the way, but that the pain was when he had to come to the decision of a loss of a little bit of mobility versus stabilization in his knee. He chose to wear the put the brace back on,
Sure.
and said that he would be doing that as well. Kyle Shanahan, when asked about Brock Purdy's availability on Sunday, I thought this was kind of interesting because he said the question was, is it going to come down to pain tolerance with Brock Purdy? Meaning, if he can push through the pain or be given medicine or something, will he go, or is he at risk of further injuring it? So maybe even if he could push through the pain, there might be recommendations from trainers to not push it, because and that would be my unprofessional opinion, though. I did study kinesiology in school, but obviously not at this level. But I do think when you talk about strained ligaments, a strained ligament is like a micro tear. At least we think from what Brock Purdy has, it's not a full blown tear, so it's like a grade 1. But it's still a micro tear, and it's an overstretching of those ligaments, like they were stretched incorrectly. And to me, it's very easy if something is already overstretched. If you put any pressure on it, because there's pressure in your face and you're forced to scramble, like maybe you go in the game and you're like, I'm not really going to scramble. But if you're in the game, like you're going to make these split-second decisions, especially if you're what you're used to, like your baseline is being able to move out of the way. It's hard to like break that habit all of a sudden. So I do think there's a risk of re-injury with that. And John Lynch actually spoke on KNBR this morning and said that he hypothesizes that the increased soreness that Brock Purdy feels this week is due to a play that he made early in the second quarter where he did scramble in the face of some pressure. Kyle
went head first. And
he went
that's
head first.
Part of the issue.
I didn't see that part. I don't love that.
He has to play more defensively. He has to slide. He has to go out of bounds before the tackler is there.
Yeah.
He's going to have to be willing to concede a little bit to protect himself.
Brock we're going to get into the interception.
He doesn't do that.
He never lives to the next down.
No.
He's never you won't slide, you won't throw the ball away.
Yeah. I give him credit for competition, but at the same time, you need to play smart. You are now the franchise quarterback of this team. One of the things that you need to value and prioritize is your own health.
Yeah.
And therefore, you have to play more defensively. You have to slide. You can't go head first into the sideline with the Seattle defender right there, because that's what caused the injury.
Tom, I want to make a statement that's like a little off topic, but I thought you saying it like that is so perfect. Like Brock Purdy, before you signed a contract to be the 49ers franchise quarterback, maybe it was like every game is so important and every play I have to like live and die and I have to prove myself. But it's like now winning a game, obviously, so, very important, needs to be a priority. Playing well throughout a season needs to be a priority. But actually, like, there's all this other, like, you just signed a multi-year contract. So what's most important is that you're not doing, like, if it's win one game and then be out a half a season, that's not, like, you need to make strategic decisions in a way that a franchise quarterback would make versus a guy playing for a next contract. And I, by the way, feel the same way about Kyle, going back to, I was kind of criticizing him from like a head coach philosophy versus an offensive coordinator. When we talk about Brock Purdy the decision to play Brock Purdy on a short week when he was already injured, I know that he was, put in this impossible situation because starting their third string quarterback was basically like admitting defeat before even taking the field. But it's like, Kyle is a horrible issue with like not protecting his franchise guy. Like the 49ers just played this guy to be your number one paid this guy to be your number one quarterback for years and years to come. Like you need to be able to think bigger than Jacksonville. You need to be able to think bigger than the next 3 weeks. And I know you said
Kyle do that?
Like that. But that is like when it comes to a franchise.
Does he have to do that? Yes. Does Purdy
look at Washington? They're not rushing Jaden Daniels back.
Right. Because they know what they're doing. It's just, this is one of the flaws of Kyle is that he doesn't plan ahead and that he doesn't see the bigger picture. He just thinks about what's in front of him. Purdy is going to have to say, okay, Kyle does that. I need to adjust my game to deal with the fact that Kyle isn't going to adjust for me. I'm going to have to play defensively to protect myself because that's our best chance of making the playoffs. You have to think in terms of the war. The war is making the playoffs. The battle is playing Jacksonville. And they need to separate those two. Yeah, they didn't. I think that playing starting Purdy was kind of forced upon them,
Yeah.
given that Kyle was never going to start Adrian Martinez. So you just have to say, okay, that's behind us now. Now let's go forward. What do we do against the Rams? And I would say that given the power of their defensive front, Brock's going to be under a lot of pressure, and he's going to have a greater risk of re-injury facing that defensive line.
Yes.
And if Brock is not 100%, sit him.
Don't do it.
And you just have to live with whatever Mac Jones is going to do. And so we'll see. But, there's a lot of things that they have to adjust and won't, because there are built-in biases of Kyle, Purdy, the whole team.
To his credit, today, and to me, this kind of gives it away. I know it's questionable, but when responding to the question about pain tolerance and playing Brock Purdy, Kyle said that Brock Purdy will only play if he can be 100% and protect if he's at 100% of his ability and can protect himself. Now, I don't know. It might be a little bit hyperbole.
That sounds good.
Know. Yeah, it's a good thing to say. It would be a sharp turn from not just last week, but previous. A lot of times players who are not.
Yeah, well, the last 8 years.
100 don't go.
So yeah.
But it was an interesting.
Is what it is, but I'm encouraged by the quote. I hope that filters down to his actual thinking. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay, I want to kind of breeze through the rest of the injury list to get into our topics and some of the comments that are predicting our topics, actually. But so aside from Brock Purdy, who I did think was the most important to mention, and then Mac being off the injury report, Ricky Pearsall that wasn't good English. Ricky Pearsall won't participate in practice today. So that means he's not even limited. He's not going to play at all with that knee injury. It's not the knee injury that was bothering him last week. They think it's a PCL that he slammed his knee into the ground when he was trying to keep his feet in bounds on, in my opinion, a bad pass by Brock Purdy that he had to kind of.
Yeah, he had to make a pretty severe adjustment to get his hands on the ball, and that forced him into the position that banged his knee.
Yeah, that's another thing when you're playing guys that are hurt, because like I said, there was reports that last week Brock Purdy was sailing passes in practice. Well, when you're throwing the ball erratically and your wide receivers are trying to catch it, they're at greater risk for re-injury, because I think of that Jennings play where he hurt his ribs.
Man. That's the ultimate hospital ball.
Yeah, they're just not.
It's just that isn't even a hospital ball; it's an IR ball.
It was so,
or an OR ball. I guess the way to put it.
You could hear. I was watching it on TV, and you could hear. I was like, I don't like. I felt so. He was on the ground crying, and the camera announcers were like, "Oh, I'll be right back." I was like, "Oh, dude."
Yeah, that looked
already
brutal.
Playing through injury, but now
but now he may not. We might be looking at a game where their starting wide receivers are Demarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne.
That's good, because Kendrick Bourne dropped 3 passes and made me. The catharticism. I don't know if that's how you say that.
Cathartic.
Would have if Kyle would have made a scene and been get off the field. I was by the second drop, and then when he dropped it the third time, I was like, I never want to see you again. Now, because I'm not trying to be all negative, if it is Mac Jones starting on Thursday against the Rams, Mac Jones not only practiced all offseason with Robinson, but also Robinson participated in all of the preseason games that most of the other starters didn't, because they were preparing for his suspension. So Mac Jones and Robinson, at least in those games, which was a month ago, were in great rhythm. And then Mac Jones has previous history, not only just this offseason in training camp, Mac Jones has history in the Patriots. Playing with Kendrick Bourne. So that does give you a little
So there should be some chemistry. The thing that I like is that if Mac Jones is in the game, he will default more to Robinson because he knows he can read where he's going. And Steve Young talked about that when he played with Jerry Rice, is that you could read the body motion and know exactly where he's going in his route, anticipate it, and make the throw. That's kind of the value of chemistry. And I think that Jones and Robinson will have that chemistry. It should help them because one of the flaws of Mac Jones has been that he'll make the first read and then he'll look off and get the check down. And that's part of why McCaffrey had so many targets and touches in the receiving game, is because Mac Jones wouldn't throw to the other open receivers. He would make the first read and then check. And so I think that in this game, that's probably going to be the same thing. But at least I like the fact that he's more likely to throw to Robinson than Purdy and Kyle did. Robinson only had 2 targets in that game. You needed to use them, and they didn't. And as a result, now you've got Ricky Pearsall hurt, Juwan Jennings hurt. And now it's Demarcus Robinson and probably Kendrick Bourne, which doesn't fill anyone with any confidence.
Moving off of Ricky really quickly, Jordan Watkins, I've kind of been wondering where he's at, especially last week with Kendrick Bourne not playing well. I was like, you have a rookie that could be.
Yeah, but is he healthy, though? He's still been recovering.
He has that calf injury, so he's not going to participate. CJ West got surgery on his thumb, and originally Kyle thought that he would be able to play with a cast kind of right away. He's out, not participating this week, but next week is still in question. They're just trying to figure out. He said the surgery was successful. They have the cast. They're just trying to figure out how he can feel comfortable playing with that cast and be effective. They don't want to put him out there if he's not going to be effective.
Well, Kyle's not going to put him out there anyway because he's a rookie. Kyle is the inverse of Saleh. Saleh will play rookies and say, I want to play the best guys out there, the best athletes out there. And Kyle, he doesn't know my system yet. He's not going to play. I mean, Jordan James has been healthy for 2 weeks. Why isn't he playing yet?
Ridiculous, Tom, especially when we get into the rushing numbers. Robert Beal, who I didn't even realize was still on the team. That's my bad.
They activated him last week.
Yeah.
After Bosa got hurt.
Ankle, so he's not going to be there. And then Juwan Jennings has that ankle from previous weeks and then ribs from that horrible hospital catch. Limited Gross Matos, knee injury, Renardo Green with his neck injury. D Winters, this one kind of sucked because I felt like D Winters, although maybe had one like pass where he kind of gave it up. I couldn't tell if it was on Winters or Luter. But for the majority of this season so far, Winters has impressed me. He's going to be limited with a knee injury. And then Michael has a wrist/oblique that's keeping him limited. Only other update, those all came from Kyle just now, like less than an hour ago. This morning, though, John Lynch was asked about Kittle and said that they're eyeing for Kittle to come back week 6. So that's the full injury report. So we can kind of have that as the basis. Okay.
So week 6, he wants to fly Kittle to Tampa.
Stupid, Tom. He needs to come back.
Yeah. Well, here's another classic case of focusing on the battle over the war.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, we need to get this win. No. You need to make sure Kittle can play the rest of the season.
Right. Because here's part of the key with Kittle is, why is their run game so bad? Part of that is Kittle. When Kittle doesn't play over his career, the Niners are 3.3 yards per carry. When he does, they're 4.5. That's the difference he makes as a blocker.
He really helps block, right, for them?
Right.
Yes.
So they think they can beat Tampa, and they want Kittle to go out there and fly on a plane across the entire country and come back and expect him to still stay healthy and be fine for the rest of the year. Good luck.
Yeah. The 49ers wide receivers, there was lots of missed blocking assignments. Johnny Odell's, he's like a 49er fan, and I don't know if he still makes YouTube videos, but he definitely
he still breaks down game video. He's really good.
And he puts them out on Twitter too, and he pointed that out quite a lot. Not to like excuse for Brock Purdy, he definitely pointed out where Brock just made the wrong read or the errant throws, but a lot in the run game. A lot of people are putting it on the O-line. The O-line was horrific, but on the plays that they did, like it was like one of those things where like everything went wrong. Brock Purdy's either making a horrible throw, or the one, very few times that Brock Purdy's actually making a throw, the wide receiver is dropping it. The O-line is like completely not run blocking at all, and Christian McCaffrey is getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage or before. Or the rare occasion that the O-line does its job, then all of a sudden Kendrick Bourne was getting pushed around and missing his assignment, and they're running into Christian McCaffrey. So it was a really total team failure on that aspect, and they definitely missed Kittle in that way, for sure.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
There was always one cut that would cause problems. But, that's what's going to happen when you're this injured, is that you don't have overlap. You have too much dependence on a player who can then derail the play. And that's what's happening now.
Yeah. Tom, you wrote a really excellent article that was put out today on SI.
Thanks.
I recommend everyone go follow Tom Jensen on Twitter, Tom Jensen or Ninercast. But I want to kind of get into, you wrote about 4 burning questions for the 49ers that applies to not just this week, but the rest of their season and even beyond that. I'd like to kind of get into some of those because I think it'll have effect for this Thursday game, and we can take what we learned from this really ugly loss and apply that as well. So the first one was about the offensive line. Do you think, and you and I have really talked about this offensive line before, but do you think the lack of care by the lack of willingness to spend money or draft assets on the offensive line by Kyle Shanahan throughout his tenure with the 49ers, this is not a new thing. It's also a decision. He's publicly said that he likes to save cap space on the O-line. So this isn't like something that has happened by accident. It is a conscious choice. Is the lack of eagerness to bolster up the O-line coming around to bite the 49ers even sooner, quicker than we thought?
Well, and to the point, quicker than Kyle thought.
Yeah, true. Not we are not a part of it.
Right. We're not making decisions here. But yeah, as I wrote in the piece, Kyle has kicked the can of the offensive line down the road year after year after year. You had the best offensive line class in over a decade, and he didn't pick a tackle. He didn't pick a center. And you just have to say, what's going on here? And it's because Kyle has said, I value people that touch the ball. And his outside zone, Alex Gibbs is the inventor of that. He was the offensive line coach at Denver for his dad. So he trusts Gibbs implicitly. And Gibbs had a meeting with NFL coaches, it's on video, where he said, point blank, you don't need to draft a tackle in the first round. You don't need those long arms. My system doesn't require it. Okay, what about pass blocking? Mumble, 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 mumble. It's just, you can't do that. And Kyle bought it, and he's followed that throughout. And you've had too many opportunities where there were people on the board they could have had or could have made a move up, like with Roger Rosengarten, where everybody and his brother knew Baltimore was going to take him. Niners didn't move ahead of that pick. He gets taken ahead of him. Oh, who knew? Everybody but you. So, there's a lot of examples of the Niners passing on offensive line talent that they could have used. And that goes from Kyle preventing the Pittsburgh trade that would have given them the 20th pick. I mean, imagine if the Niners had Graham Barton at center right now. He could have been that 20th pick. And that's Kyle not valuing the offensive line, not valuing or anticipating the needs coming down, and not seeing the opportunity of, this is the best offensive line draft in forever. Why aren't you taking offensive linemen?
Yeah.
And that's all on Kyle. So yeah, is Kyle neglecting the offensive line coming back to bite him? Yeah. And particularly this year because Trent has fallen off. And so
I was going to say that.
That's the real core of the problem, is the offensive line could work if Trent worked. But if Trent falls off, the entire premise of the offensive line collapses. And that's what we're seeing. Their run game is
real regression
terrible
from Trent.
Yeah. It's just Trent is 37 and it shows now. He was immortal. He was a superhero. This year, he's back to Clark Kent. And that's the problem. is that you can't afford, in the way that Kyle has built this offensive line, you can't afford Trent to just be normal. He has to be amazing. He's not.
Colt McKivitz had a couple misassignments. I feel like Puni is not.
Puni's regressed.
Yeah, he's. They said at the end of his rookie year that some of his play style had been figured out, and that there were things that he needed to do outside of games, like in practice, whether it was with his hands or technique. That in college he could just rely on his size and being bigger than guys, but now that he was in the NFL, he was going to need to put more effort into that. Him and Chris Kosera kind of were joking about it, I would say, his rookie year, where not Kosera, Chris Forster, the offensive line coach. You could tell though he was like, I mean it. Like, he does need to be taking his rehab seriously. He does need to work on this technique. And Pudding was like, yeah, I do. And it's definitely coming around to show now that he can't just win in the way that he did in college.
Well, we have to take an inventory of the line after Trent and say, okay, 7th round pick at left guard, undrafted player at center.
Yeah.
3rd round pick at right guard, 5th round pick at right tackle.
Yeah.
And they wonder why they're not getting any drive off the line.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just, and so again, that's when Kyle kicks the can down the road like that, you end up with this year's offensive line.
Yeah.
And the only salvation that they have is that eventually Kittle and Ayuk will come back, and that will help the run game. Yeah. But the offensive line they have is substandard. They're in the bottom 4 to last in the league in various categories in rushing. And that's because they haven't invested in the offensive line, and it's the smallest line in the league. It's behind the times in terms of where the league is going as far as having the necessary level of physicality on the line. You can try to win on speed and angles, but you still need to have the drive, especially in the red zone. They've done nothing in the red zone. Christian has 16 carries for 10 yards in the red zone this year.
It's so bad. It's so bad, Tom.
And part of that is him. Part of that's the offensive line. So
yeah, it's definitely both. It's Christian has lost burst. At the same time, he's not being set up in a position to have success at all. Jake Brendel, I can think of multiple clips where he was being pushed back to Brock Purdy, who's injured and trying to step forward with his toe, or he's being pushed into Christian McCaffrey, and then that's pushing Christian McCaffrey outside instead of him being able to take an open lane that was supposed to be behind Brendel because Brendel is coming back. Kyle Posey of Niner Nation, who does a good job and lots of film breakdowns too. I feel like he knows what he's talking about when it comes to O-line and tape. He actually said that he thought Trent Williams was the worst offensive lineman on the field last Sunday, which is saying something.
Well, that's what's going to happen. You're 37. It seems clear to me that he didn't put in the work in the offseason to get himself in shape. I kind of call him the Shaq of the NFL. He didn't put in the offseason work. He just thought that he could play the games and get in shape that way. Okay, we're now 4 weeks in, and he's still not effective. Now, how much of that is shape? He should be in shape now after 4 games. So what else is it? Age. He's 37. At some point, you're going to lose to Father Time. And unfortunately for the Niners, it's this year. And so they're going to have to move on. They're going to have to take, in my opinion, a first-round left tackle.
Yeah.
And so the guys that I keep mentioning are Caleb Lomu from Utah and Trevor Gooseby from Texas. I think those are the top 2. I used to have Isaiah World from Oregon in there. He didn't play well against Penn State. He had trouble anchoring. He had a blatant hold that wasn't called by the refs. He got worked by the Penn State edges to a degree. Oregon still won the game, but World no longer looks like a first-round pick to me based on that Penn State game. And they've got NFL first-round talent. So I'm pushing him down now to the second round. So it's Lomu and Gooseby are the main guys that I think are probably their top 2 targets. Right now, in some mocks, they go 17 and 18. Others, they go in the early 20s. That's around where I think the Niners would end up picking.
Okay. There was a different – I thought this was kind of interesting. Jose Sanchez, who's a colleague of yours, says that the 49ers through 4 games are 4th worst in run stuffed rate. That means your rusher is stopped before or at the line of scrimmage is how PFF ranks that. It's 28 or 20.8% of the time, and they have the 2nd worst rushing yards over expected yards at -47. 4th worst, a Kyle Shanahan offense.
It's so uncharacteristic.
Deeply relies on not only the run game being effective by itself, but its pass game is almost solely based off how the run game is going.
In the past, yeah. Now they're leading with the pass game because they have to, because the running game isn't there. Yeah. So, rushing yards, 28th. Rushing yards per attempt, 31st. Rushing yards after contact, 32nd. So that's last, next to last, 4th last in the main rushing categories. A lot of that is the offensive line. They're not getting the drive off the line that they need to. And they don't have Kittle and Ayuk, and Jennings has been hurt. All of that adds up. And Christian has lost his 5th gear. And he keeps getting the ball. So there you are. All of that adds up to an ineffective running game. And that doesn't work with this offense. This system depends on play action to set up the pass. But if you can't run, do they really need to worry about play action? Go ahead, run.
Can we
They're going to play the pass.
Can we transfer this into your next question that you posed in your article? Because since we're talking about the run game, Chris McCaffrey is struggling, and part of that is because the offensive line can't block. Part of it is because even when the offensive line does block, George Kittle's not out there, and the other wide receivers are missing their blocking assignments at an alarming rate. But also, when given some open air or when given a couple guys to tackle, in the past, Chris McCaffrey was guys were dragging him down. We're no longer seeing that burst from Christian, but he's getting 50% of the offensive snaps. I think it's actually 42.3% of the offensive plays, that's running or catching the ball, have gone through Christian McCaffrey. His highest overall usage rate that's the highest overall usage rate of any player in the NFL, not just the 49ers.
Right.
He's been targeted 43 times, 18 more than any other running back. His 34% target rate is 4th of any pass catcher. So that's meaning he's getting the ball as a rusher way more than any other running back in the league. And he's top 5 at getting the ball in the passing game as well. So he's top 5 or number 1 in both areas, and they're utilizing him in both ways. He is currently on pace for 2,252 scrimmage yards. To put that into perspective, he had about 2,000 the year that he made Offensive Player of the Year, which was 2023.
Right.
He's on pace for way more than that, but he's not even a fraction of successful. Tom talked about earlier Kyle Shanahan having the urge to push the Christian McCaffrey button because it was so effective that it was it was hard to be like, do I want to do this thing that I know is an easy give me 10 to take it to the house yards, or do I want to try to scheme something else up? The issue is this year I'm having a much harder time justifying, and by the way, I think it was reckless decision making by Kyle to do that before, but understandable because it was so effective. This year, not only is what are you doing extremely reckless because Chris McCaffrey is now older and coming off of 2 major injuries that have sidelined him for more than a year. But also it's not effective. It's not like he's doing something and it's ooh, this is really risky, but it works. It's not working.
Not in the run game. It's still working in the pass game. Sure. He's 3rd in the league with 25 catches. That's of everybody, running backs, receivers, tight ends. But in the run game, it's just not there. A lot of that is no drive in the offensive line,
Yeah.
but it's also that Christian lacks the burst. It's this year he is at 36% of his yards after contact in 2023. That's the level of the drop. It's gone from 2.2 in 2023 to zero point 0.8. And that shows. We're seeing that. But the other problem is doing that in the red zone because he's so inefficient. You know, zero point 0.6 yards per carry, and he's getting 76% of the carries in the red zone. That doesn't make sense. You're just throwing downs away.
Yeah.
And it's just Christian's done it before. He hasn't done it for 2 years. It's 2023, his long run was 72. 2025, it's 15. Part of that is Kittle and Ayuk and a healthy Jennings. Part of that is Christian just doesn't have the fifth gear any longer.
The 49ers
And so
don't have
in
a
my
rusher.
article, I'm sorry, Ashley, if I could, in my article, I raised the question then, what do you do next year?
Yeah.
McCaffrey doesn't have guaranteed money left, but if he's on the roster next year, he's paid $18.4 million. Do you want to pay him that much for what you now get as a runner from Christian McCaffrey? I think they have to move off of him as the lead back. If they want to keep him, that's up to Kyle. Kyle will. But you have to say, all right, who's my lead back next year? And part of the reason why they need to play Jordan James is to learn if he's that guy.
Yeah.
They have to see
can't
him.
go into next year guessing.
Right.
You have all this
and
opportunity
you have to
actually
play him.
see.
Now, I know that Kyle's going to have his objections. He doesn't know all the plays. He's not great in pass pro, whatever. Have a package of plays that he can execute. Use those. You don't have to use the full playbook. You can just say, okay, when I bring in Jordan James, I have this playlist to work from. That's a way to get him on the field. And especially the red zone, you need to do that. Christian is only giving you 0.6 yards per carry in the red zone. You going to tell me that Jordan James can't do better than that? Brian Robinson can't do better than that? Yeah, they can. Christian is still effective.
He's not getting the ball at the same rate, but when he is getting the ball, he's Kyle forgot. Kyle was asked, by the way, about the run game being such an issue. This is not like something we're bringing up out of nowhere. Everyone, including people that are usually praising the 49ers when it comes to everything, have to acknowledge that they're horrible right now in the run game. Christian is averaging, I think, 3.1 yards per carry. If you total up all 4 games, last week it was only 2.9 yards per carry throughout the whole game. When Kyle was asked about the run game, he talked about not having explosive plays. He was like, yeah, I think, we haven't had a run that's longer than 11 yards. And I wanted to scream because Christian hasn't had a run longer than 11 yards. Also, by the way, that was like, and I'm not like that, one is not long, and 2, he's nowhere near getting those often either. But Kyle just forgot that Brian Robinson had a 19-yard run. Like, they do have other rushers on the team that Kyle so easily is overlooking. As you said, they should definitely get Jordan James out there to at least see what he is for next year. Mr. Corey brings up Isaac Guerrero and says, he's fumbled in practice. Right. I think what he's getting at is that Christian McCaffrey has fumbled in multiple games, including the Super Bowl, but also last week. We're just talking about I don't know if you would consider that a fumble, a juggle / throw to the other team.
Well, he tipped the ball for the pick, but he also had a fumble, and he recovered it. But Isaac Guerrero is persona non grata as far as getting on the field, which is unfortunate, but there it is. But that's what happens when you draft a guy who is basically a wide receiver, not a back. I think that if they want to use Guerrero, they might have to change him to a receiver. But anyway, so, Throwback says move on. Though, CMC's got a baby girl now. He's got a family. He's going to want to get an extension, or he's going to want what's built into his contract now. And that's the decision that Shanahan's going to have to make, is that you can extend him and give him more guaranteed money and guaranteed years. You can keep him on the roster at his current deal, and then you're paying him $18 million next year, or you can cut him. Now, I don't think it's conceivable that Kyle would ever willingly cut Christian McCaffrey. He would never do it. So I think that we have to calibrate our expectations that even though McCaffrey is fading, Kyle's going to keep him because Kyle's going to Kyle. And so what does that then mean? the thing that we have to hope for is, as fans, media, whatever, is that if the Niners are going to be efficient on the ground, it can't be McCaffrey as the lead back next year. And the offensive line can't come back as this group. It's the draft picks are almost forced upon them. I think they have to take a left tackle and they have to take a center no later than the fourth round. They've got to make two picks in the offensive line at least.
Tom, are you suggesting that Kyle is going to pay Brock Purdy $18 million to not be the number one rusher?
I'm saying that he has to do that by using McCaffrey in a different way, that McCaffrey can still be one of their leading receivers and contribute that way. But Christian as a lead back, they can't do. But Kyle being Kyle, he's going to keep him as the lead back as well, probably. But at the very least, the adjustment he has to make is CMC can't carry the ball in the red zone, period, end of story. That has to end.
Yeah.
And the sooner the better. I mean, 0.6 yards a carry is not going to cut it. I don't care how bad the offensive line is. That's McCaffrey too. And Kyle needs to recognize that fact. You are sabotaging your own red zone by running Christian in the red zone. And Kyle needs to recognize that. Your red zone offense not producing touchdowns is because you keep running Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
He has to adjust to that. If he doesn't, if I'm the Yorks, I would say, we need to talk about this.
Someone kind of pointed this out indirectly by saying if it was up to Kyle, Debo would still be here because Debo made the decision to leave. And what I would say is this conversation feels very much like last year when Debo was not in shape, he was not producing, and Kyle was still force-feeding the offense through Debo. And everyone watching was like, this is not a successful strategy, but you're just running your head into a wall over and over again because you've decided that this is what you need to do. And you're right that it feels like that's what he's doing with Christian McCaffrey. And Julie, you're right. That
Julie's dead on as always.
Who's a little bit younger. They have Jordan James, who they drafted when we see on defense, Robert Saleh seems to be much more open to playing, younger guys and at least getting that explosive physicality, aggression that some veterans no longer have at that speed. Maybe they have a better understanding of the system, but what's most important in football is your matchup going against the guy. And if you can beat him with power, with physicality, with aggression, that is important, or with speed on offense. Instead, they're playing Kendrick Bourne. They have guys that they could be playing, but no, we don't want to give them an opportunity. But this 30, something-year-old wide receiver who's, on his second ACL and his fourth team, I don't know. I don't understand the logic, but we know that's Kyle.
We know what the logic is. It's he knows my system.
Yeah.
Great. He's 34 and dropped 3 passes against Jacksonville. Next. Think you can't keep being so beholden to your system that you've got these blinders on where it's just, Kendrick Bourne can help us because he knows the system. Can he? We've just seen that's not necessarily true. Yeah. So anyway, it's just with Christian, they're going to face a contractual decision next year. And I think that Kyle is either going to renegotiate an extension that's more cap friendly next year, or they're just going to keep him and let the current contract roll. But paying Christian McCaffrey $18 million next year, I mean, part of the reason why the Yorks are kind of upset about some of the financial management, Kyle pays no attention to the financial management of the roster. A real GM would. Kyle does not. He just wants to reward his guys. And he's thinking like a head coach, like an offensive coordinator. Understandable. And that's exactly what you would want as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach. But as a GM, you've got a responsibility of the organization, the team, to manage the fiscal element of the roster. Kyle hasn't done that. He should have thought of that when he said, no, don't trade Ayuk. And he should have thought of that in terms of Trent. And now McCaffrey is going to be the next one up next year that's going to test whether the Yorks are going to put their foot down fiscally or if Kyle is going to push through and say, I've got to have Christian. I would expect that Kyle will win that debate and Christian will stay on the team and he'll be overpaid, but here we are. This is part of what comes. There's a lot of baggage that comes with Kyle. That's one of them, is that your players are old and overpaid because Kyle isn't willing to let those guys go.
When it comes to the overpaid question, we're going to transition. Look at how good I just did at that one.
There you go.
Next question in your article was about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is currently injured. But Brock Purdy, even prior to his toe injury, has increasingly each year in the league thrown more and more interceptions and had a worse interception to touchdown or touchdown to interception ratio. In his last 2 starts, Mr. Papa J in the chat pointed out that he has actually more losses than wins. But aside from that, he also in 2 starts has 5 turnovers in just 2 starts, 5 turnovers. And honestly, I would argue could be 6 because I think Jake Tonjes saved the football game in week 1 and saved Brock Purdy from a horrific interception. But that's a little that's a little on me. I guess that's
No, I agree. I agree with all of that. I would just add Reek Woolen to that mix.
Yeah, true. Him being horrible. Tom, what's going on with Brock Purdy and what are the 49ers going to do about it? Because they just paid this guy.
Yeah, they're locked into him. I don't think that they could just say, well, we're just going to roll with Mac.
Yeah,
but
at least until 2027.
Yeah, probably so. I would expect that when Brock is healthy, Brock plays. Now, that might not be true this week, though, because it's such a quick, short turnaround. And because he got pretty banged up, he did get re-injured, in my opinion. And so if Mac's 100% playing. But long-term, there's still a question of Purdy in terms of his health. He has to play more defensively, as we talked about before. But he also needs to do a better job of managing the game and protecting the football more than he does. He keeps making the same mistake. And that's where I point to the coaching and say, where's the coaching to fix this? Where's the coaching to change his mindset? The Niners back in the day, Mike Holmgren, the offensive coordinator under Bill Walsh, would meet with Joe Montana. They'd go over the interceptions of the previous game. They'd determine if that was Joe's fault or not. If it was, they would take the play out of the playbook. Smart, really smart.
Interesting.
What did the Niners do about that with Brock? You can say, well, it's not really the play's fault. It's more of Brock just improvising and then throwing a pick, which is true. So what you need to do is you have to change his mindset.
Yeah.
He has
to
think.
Up an open wide receiver that's 10, 15 yards in front of him to throw to a wide receiver in triple coverage downfield.
We've seen him do that that's a lot of times. Brock hasn't gotten past that hurdle, is that he still has the reflexive reaction of I'm pressured, I don't have anywhere to go with the ball, I'm going to try to throw a 50-50 ball into coverage, and it's just putting the team at risk by doing that. Yeah. And so my question is, where's Kyle? Where's Mick Lombardi in saying, no, throw the ball away, run, whatever. You do not ever throw the ball with the 50-50 ball going into double or triple coverage.
Yeah.
And yet he does it time and time and time again, and he's never grown past that. No. This is something that was an issue when he first began to start in his second year and this year. He's thrown 8 picks in 5 games. That mindset has to be dealt with.
Such a crazy, say that stat again. I feel like people aren't understanding.
8 picks in 5 games. His last 5, he's thrown 8 interceptions, which is way too high.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection of that mindset. He has to think, throw the ball away or run. Yeah. He cannot choose the option of 50-50 into coverage. And yet he keeps doing it.
And he's the weird thing is this is, like you've said, it's been a problem for him his entire career. Yeah. I think now with the power of hindsight, we can say it's actually kind of a bummer. He got away with a lot of these passes his initial rookie year when he was thrown in, and some of these horrible decisions would work out. And so I feel like he became kind of emboldened to make choices like that. They are becoming more and more that they are working out less and less. as he has continued to make these decisions. So you would hope that there'd be an adjustment. Brock has actually been asked about this because he's done it so often. And he said, I got to live to the next down. I got to know when to throw it away. I got to make smart choices. He says the right things in press conferences that make you feel like someone has pointed out, hey, like, don't try to be the hero. And he talked about this a lot last year with all the injuries, but and he would go up and he'd say, I can't, I have to execute the system. I have to get other guys involved. I can't try to win it all back in one play. I can't play hero ball. That's just putting the ball in harm's way. There's a stat. I think it's 8 out of 10 times if you lose the turnover battle, your team loses the turnover battle, you're going to lose that game. Turnovers are so important. They give opposing offenses an entire other down. They take points off of you, whether it's, and by the way, Brock is throwing a lot of his turnovers on first down too, which is even more frustrating.
And so it's,
you never want to throw a turnover, but at least on third down, you're like, okay, you feel like you have to make a play or else, which even then, by the way, still you can just punt, trust your defense, especially with the 49ers and the defense they have this year. But Brock is doing this like he is wiping away entire offensive drives from the 49ers because he's doing this as soon as they get the ball. Then the defense has to go out there still tired, and opposing teams have chances to get 3 to 7 points where the 49ers didn't. Like, he's done this when they have been in field goal range. He needs to, this is something that he has talked about, been asked about, seemingly knows because he says the right things, but we have not seen an adjustment in his play in this area at all.
Right. None. Well, here's the stat that brings that home. Percentage of drives ending in an offensive turnover. The Niners are first in the league, meaning worst at that. 18.6% of their drives end in a turnover this year. That's first. The worst team in the league at that. Brock has to do that. Brock has to figure out, look, don't be a captive of the moment. And again, this goes back to think war, not battle, is throw it away. And if you're not throwing it away, if you're pulling a Jimmy Garoppolo, refusing to throw the ball away because it affects your stats on completion rate, stop it. You've been paid. You don't need to play for stats anymore. You're the franchise quarterback. You got a ton of money. Stop saying, I'm not going to throw the ball away because it hurts my stats. Throw the ball away. Win the game. You're going to be evaluated based on wins and losses.
Yeah.
Not your completion percentage. Throw it away. Yeah. And that needs to be drilled into him. Garoppolo never did that because he never wanted to touch his stats. He was the worst in the league at throwing the ball away. The fewest by far.
I hate that. What's up with the 49ers quarterbacks?
And that's it. It's a whole of the coaching is that they don't drill down and say, why are you not throwing the ball away? And why aren't they instructing him to do that? I mean, that's the obvious solution for Brock is don't throw it into coverage, throw it to the sideline, throw it to me.
Yeah.
Hit Kyle in the numbers.
And that's something you can drill in.
Yeah. There's an obvious solution here.
Like, if you're going to be a franchise quarterback, you're going to be around for a long time. This is like your number one issue, Brock.
Right. Yeah. I think I've said this 2 years running now is that the main thing that Brock needs to work on in the offseason is his mindset to do a better job protecting the ball. And 8 picks in 5 games later, here we are.
Yeah. Foot said, I thought coaches showed Purdy his lowlights this offseason so he could learn. This is kind of what we were talking about. They do this after every single game. They've done this for multiple seasons, and yes, did it this offseason as well. And Brock Purdy, like I said, Tom and I have both addressed this. He walks to the podium. He says the right things. He knows that he's doing this. I don't know why he's continuing to make these risky, dangerous throws. I imagine that
I think it's habit. It's habit.
Has a lot of belief in himself, thinks he can.
He's competitive, and he believes that he can make the throw. But
and
the stats say no.
Yeah. You want a competitive quarterback. You want a quarterback with a little bit of an ego who believes that he can make the throw and give his teammate the opportunity. We're not trying to completely, neuter Brock and take that out of him, but he's no longer in a situation where it's working more than it's hurting. It is hurting significantly more than it's working. So right now it's like, okay, we got to readjust. We got to readjust. We got to start being able to just move the chains, live to see the next down, keep the ball on offense, give the defense a rest. If he could start to get more comfortable with that and the offense was actually putting up some points and the defense was resting, I imagine that they would occasionally, once a quarter, once a half, want him to make, to give his wide receiver a chance. But right now, I mean, he was just coming off of injury for 2 weeks. He doesn't have great chemistry with these wide receivers. Maybe that's something you can do if you practiced all offseason, you were totally healthy. You were training in the offseason with Brandon Ayuk, who was totally healthy, and you guys come and there's a situation where it's him versus the cornerback and you trust your guy. Okay. But it's about making smart. You can take risks, but take strategic risks. Make a smart choice. Don't throw into triple coverage to a guy that you're not used to throwing to when you can't plant your back foot so it's going to float there. Like, you need to – there's plenty of quarterbacks around the league that make a risky throw, but they are doing it knowing I'm torquing my body, my foot is planted in the ground, I'm giving this all I got, and I have great chemistry with this guy, and I know the cornerback that's covering him, and I believe that my guy can, outrun that guy or do whatever, moss that guy in order to get this pass, so.
Yeah. Well, so basically it's the veteran quarterbacks that are the elite group.
Yeah.
Can place the ball in an area where only the receiver can catch it, and it's not a threat to be picked. Brock needs to get to that point. He's not there. But he also needs to establish a new mindset where we know you want to compete for every play. We know you want to try to give your team a chance. But the best way that you can help the team win is to throw the ball away or run.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is to throw that 50-50 ball into coverage. And Brock needs to get that. 3 years in, he hasn't gotten that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's frustrating. Brock does a lot of things, that are.
He does a lot of things well.
Right now,
he's done well with Ricky Pearsall this year, so I think there's some chemistry there. Yeah. But this is the one thing he has to fix, and it's on him. Yeah.
And he can't just say he's going to fix it. He really needs to.
Yeah, words don't matter when it's 8 picks in 5 games.
Yeah.
Prove it.
He's now lost more games, like in his recent. If you look at his most recent games, he's lost more games than he's won, and he's turned the ball over an insane amount of times to be.
Yeah, well,
top level.
Nearly 20% of their drives end in a turnover. You can't win games that
so way. Infuriating. Like, you're not going to win with that. You're just not going to win with that.
No. And so ultimately that's on Brock. Once he does make that adjustment, I think the Niners will be a good offense.
Yeah.
Once they've got everybody healthy and once they've got more balance in the running game and drafted a couple of linemen next year. But until then, they've got to deal with what they have now. And that means Brock needs to be even more focused in on don't throw the ball up for grabs.
Yes. And we have some comments. There's multiple other things that are leading to this. Obviously, Brock Purdy dealing with that injury. Like I said, he was sailing passes in practice, meaning he was throwing passes too high in practice. When your foot is hurt and your toe is hurt and you can't plant it, you're going to be a little wobbly. You're doing a lot of upper body throws, which Brock Purdy already doesn't have the strongest arm. So when you're taking away that lower body torque, it's not good. But I think what Tom and I are trying to say is all the more reason for him to be even more protective of the football right now.
Exactly right.
Brock Purdy's natural instinct is to be a more aggressive guy, make the dangerous, risky play. He has to also, because now he's a franchise quarterback, he has to also be strategic and go, okay, that's who I am, but I can't play like that right now because my body isn't, I'm not able, the offensive line is bad. I'm getting pressured. I can't plant my foot in the ground the way that I normally can. In order to get through the next 1 to 4 weeks, my main goal is to protect the football. If I'm feeling better and I feel like, Kittle is back and I trust him and I can plant my foot in the ground, then I'm going to take that risk. But right now, or last game with Kendrick Bourne, who I haven't thrown the ball to at all, they had not practiced together. Like, no, don't do that. So that's what we're trying to say is this is the next level for Brock Purdy. It's no longer just about your performance on the field. It's about your decision-making. and decision making on the field, but also your game planning going into the field. You need to know, okay, where am I at, and what are the risks that I should be taking or shouldn't be taking based on the team around me. That includes offensive line, pass catchers, and based on how I'm feeling. And
Yeah,
so
he has to
we're
take
saying Buffett
everything
is
into
not being stupid.
context and act accordingly.
Yeah.
He has to make good decisions, so we'll see. I
Yeah.
think we need to move on to previewing the Rams. So
Okay.
we can skip the
Yeah, we've been
ownership
talking
stuff
forever.
for now.
Sorry for going a little bit. We've had so much to say about
We
each
got into
topic.
it.
For you guys, I'm gonna plug it again. Tom wrote an excellent article. He has more to say. I feel like the reason we went so deeply about all these is he has a ton of great points in this article. So make sure to follow him on Twitter because he breaks it down perfectly. 49ers are going to face the Rams on Thursday, just 2 nights away. They have a great quarterback who's healthy right now. Their defense is scary. The 49ers defense didn't get any pressure on the Jaguars. The only reason they were in that game, in my opinion, was because Jaguars offense was horrible and they gave up, I think, 12 penalties for 90 yards. I don't think the Rams are going to do that. Puka Nacua is showing out. He had an outstanding game last week. Devontae Adams is on that team too. How do you feel like this matchup is going to go, Tom?
Not well. No. It's really tough. You're facing Matthew Stafford. You just lost Nick Bosa. You had 5 pressures, no sacks, and for the first time in 10 years, no quarterback hits on Trevor Lawrence.
You were talking about this last week, not to interrupt you, but Robert Saleh's he needs to blitz.
Right, because Jacksonville has the second best pass protecting offensive line in the league. People didn't factor that in.
Yeah.
And I think that factored into why those stats were so poor is that give some credit to their O-line of making that happen, in addition to the Niners not having Bosa. But to your point on blitzing, is that what we saw in the Jacksonville game, the Niners blitzed, but they didn't get home in time.
No.
That they would blitz Fred and he'd be like a step away from Lawrence.
Yeah.
Or they would blitz other people. So I would think that one of the things he has to change is that Saleh has to bring more speed in the blitz, which means Upton Stout and D. Winters. They need to be the ones blitzing because you need somebody who can close on Stafford, because then you know that Stafford lacks the escapability. He's a statue. He can't run from somebody that's quicker, but you need somebody to get to him fast enough because he can get the ball out so quickly because Puka Nacua beats anybody that's covering him. So it becomes paramount to get more speed in the blitz, and I think that's my expectation is that Saleh's adjustment for this game, more speed in the blitz.
Yeah, I definitely think defensively they need to blitz more. The defense also this isn't Robert Saleh's fault because there's been other defensive coordinators, but they are not great at taking away the ball, and they need to get some of these interceptions.
Yeah,
Fred Warner is great at knocking out the ball. And those things help. It's extremely important. And congratulations to Fred Warner. He's definitely the best defensive player on the team, maybe the best player on the team in general right now for all of the 49ers. But they got to be better. When he knocked out the ball, there's the Johnny Odell guy, 49er guy who breaks down film that I was mentioning earlier on offense. When he broke this down, when Fred Warner punched out the ball, the rest of the offense, or maybe this was on Baldy's breakdowns, the rest of the defensive line was like, instead of being what you're supposed to do is try to rush the passer. Oh, the ball's out. We're turning around and we're going after that guy so we can tackle. So if the ball gets knocked out, we can pick it up. Fred Warner knocked the ball out. The ball's on the ground. There's no 49ers defensive players in the area, and Jacksonville ends up recovering it.
Yeah.
So they got to be better at swarming to the football. That used to be
they do that. They do that sometimes, but in that specific situation, they didn't, which was kind of puzzling.
Yeah.
Because they do that otherwise. You know, they swarm to the ball well when the ball's thrown wide. You know, they'll have somebody that's making a good single tackle in the open field, but they also have guys that are swarming to it.
Yeah.
There's usually 2 or 3 guys in the vicinity on almost every play. Swarm is one of the things that Saleh wants and teaches. So I think that it was just kind of strange that they didn't. And part of that also, though, in terms of the recovery, part of the reason Jacksonville won was vastly superior speed. And it played out in that, in addition to Etienne, the punt return, etc. The Niners were just beat. And so that's something they're going to have to fix in the draft too, and free agency. They have to get faster. Jacksonville exposed their lack of speed. So, as an aside, anyway, so what do you do now? I think that they've got to see what they can and can't do against the Rams. One of the weaknesses the Rams have is their passing in the red zone. They target Devontae Adams. They don't throw to Puka, which is kind of strange, but they don't. So Devontae has 9 targets in the red zone. He only has 2 catches.
Wow.
Both of those are touchdowns, but 2 for 9 is not a good percentage. It's 22%. No. So that's what they do, and that's something where the Niners can succeed if they shadow and put an emphasis on Devontae and say that, okay, in the red zone, we're going to pay less attention to Puka and we're going to pay more attention to Devontae and try to force Stafford to make a great play, and Adams. So that's one thing that the Niners can look at, is that's one Ram weakness of very few, is their passing in the red zone is inefficient. And that's something the Niners can attack.
Yeah. So attack Devontae in the red zone, blitzing, and do anything you can to get some pressure on Matthew Stafford. I'm just really nervous that he's gonna.
It's gonna be Benny Hanna.
Yeah,
he's just gonna slice, dice.
Did not take advantage of the fact that they were not that there was seemingly no pass rush on Trevor Lawrence. So
yeah, well, 5 pressures, no sacks, no hits. That's basically their offensive line pitching a shutout, really. Yeah. So what do they need to do? I think this is one of the key stats of the game in comparing the two teams. The Rams are second in sacks per game, 3.5. That's up from last year. They were 2.8. Okay. The Niners are 26th, 1.3 sacks per game, down from 2.2 last year. If that continues to play out, that's a blowout. So Saleh has to find some way to get pressure on Stafford or it's over, especially against the secondary. I mean, the only guy that's covering well right now is Deommodore Lenoir. You've got Renardo Green with a neck injury, Darrell Luter, who played in the parking lot last week. It's just you can't do that, and the safeties are bad. Fortunately, they're going to get Mustafa back game 6, game 7. But until then, you got 3 of the 4 in the back are really vulnerable. And you've got some great receivers. Puka Nacua, tying the NFL record in catches through 4 games, leads the league in yards, is averaging over 125 a game. Yeah. It's sick. And so if they've got that and the Niners can't get to him, it's over.
Yeah. On offense, what are the 49ers going to do to try to score? Defensively, we know that they need to try to limit Puka Nacua as best as possible, but he's kind of going to get off on you. So at least limit Devontae Adams in the red zone, because hopefully that'll negate something there. Blitzing with speed to get to Matthew Stafford will hopefully be an adjustment that we see. But on offense, if the 49ers are going to stick in this game, because I think a lot of people in the comments are pointing out that they feel like Matthew Stafford will be able to score on this defense. Offensively, the 49ers, and 49 fans, because we've been so spoiled, seem to, cry every time the defense gives up anywhere from 17 to 20 points and says, the defense shouldn't, they're the reason that they lost the game. No, if you look around the league, offenses are expected to put up 30 to 40 points every single week in order to win. The 49ers offense can't seem to score more than, 17 most weeks. How are they going to actually put points on the board in order to stay in this game with the Rams?
First, I think they need to deal with that pass rush, which means, again, whoever the quarterback is going to have to utilize the horizontal game with short throws.
Yeah,
they're going to have to, and they're going to need to lean. We think that the touches from McCaffrey have been crazy so far. They'll even be more so this one, because you might not have Pearsall and Jennings. So they're going to feed Christian McCaffrey endlessly, and we're all just going to cringe and say, I hope he holds up. Yeah. But they're going to have to use him a lot. They're going to have to use him in screens, checkdowns, flares, whatever. But they're going to have to set up Christian. So that's one thing, is that the run game isn't going to do much. It's just going to do what it can. But the pass game is what they're going to have to do to move the ball. And that applies to the red zone
Jump
too,
off passes, getting the ball
because
out.
the red zone run game is so bad that they have to throw.
Yeah.
And the problem is that Kyle runs on first down in the red zone something like 82% of the time. So they're really predictable. And then Christian McCaffrey gets 0.6 yards, and now you got second and 9.4 or 8.4, 9.4. And it just makes it harder. They have to readjust. Well, they have to adjust to throwing more in the red zone. And between the 20s, they need to just work McCaffrey, work the horizontal game, work the quick throws, because you're dealing with Jared Verse, you're dealing with the Rams D line. If it's Purdy, you don't want him trying to run out of pressure and getting more hurt. If it's Mac Jones, he's already going to be limited on the bad knee.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to throw the ball out
Get the ball
really
out.
fast. And then the Rams are going to know that, and they're going to sit on the short throws and just dare the Niners to protect him and whoever the quarterback is, and just say that we dare you to be this long.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the key for the Niners' success, is mainly red zone. And Kyle is very good in the script in the opening of the game. They usually get a drive, and they're going to need to convert that drive to a touchdown to have a chance, in my view. And they're going to have to create turnovers. So don't run Christian in the red zone. Throw wide. Do what you can. Use misdirection. Use play action. Try to do something to free people up in the red zone. Get that touchdown you needed. But on defense, they're going to have to find a way, through blitzing, through simulated pressure, to not just get to Stafford, but to create turnovers. If they don't win the turnover margin, I don't see how they win. I'm sorry,
What I will
Ashley.
say is Stafford will give you opportunities to turn him over.
Yeah. If you pressure Stafford, especially if you pressure him up front, he can make some problems. He can throw some picks now and then. But to me, that's the only way the Niners have a shot, is they've got to win the turnover margin to have a chance. If the Rams win that turnover battle, or if it's even, no, I have the Rams winning easily. My pick is Rams 34-20.
Yeah, I agree. That seems good. Very plausible. We have a super chat, and it'll be we're going to close out the show soon, but Dark Halo says a Thursday night game may be the Niners' best shot at LA. I will say I disagree. I actually had, like, when we were just on paper before the season started, I had the 49ers splitting with the Rams. I think the fact that their starting quarterback and even their backup quarterback are dealing with injuries, and their number one wide receiver and Ricky Pearsall right now is injured. I think that some extra time would have done the 49ers good, especially being that they're coming off. So not only are they injured, but they're coming off a loss, so their morale is down. Both teams, there's no advantage from LA because both teams played on Sunday. However, LA did win, so I think they're going to have a better mindset coming into it. I do want to give some optimism because I feel like I've been so negative about this game. I very clearly think the 49ers are going to lose. And this is I'm not trying to down Brock Purdy, but if Mac Jones does start because Brock Purdy is injured, the one thing that I will say that is good when it comes to Mac Jones playing is he has the most chemistry with Demarcus Robinson, who's going to be playing if Ricky Pearsall plays, which is an if. He has good chemistry with Ricky as well. And with going against LA's pass rush, the fact that Mac Jones gets the ball out quicker, I think will be the recipe for success. I agree with Tom. Since the run game is really ineffective right now, and it doesn't look like they have practice right now, and there's no reports that Isaac Rondo's out there doing anything or Jordan James is out there doing anything. So I don't think all of a sudden there's going to be a switch up. If there is and those guys play, that's great. If not, I agree with Tom. You need to simulate a rush through the pass game, which is just short, very dump off passes out wide. Andy Reid does a lot of that because the Chiefs don't run a ton. So I agree. I think that's how you attack that. I still have the 49ers losing. I just think all this, team matchup wise, even if everyone was healthy and rest wasn't an issue. I think matchup wise, right now, the Rams have the advantage over the 49ers. And then you add in all the situational disadvantage or all the stuff going on.
All the injury stuff and the
think,
matchups, it just doesn't go well. I want to get this from the chat since he asked us directly. Humaro Thomas says Hendrickson. No.
I think he got hurt.
There's a couple of reasons why I don't think they'll get Trey Hendrickson. One, he's 30. Two, you would have to give up so much for him that you can't rent him. You have to sign him to a new deal. Cincinnati couldn't get him to sign a new contract because their ownership is so cheap. But Hendrickson wants to get $30 million a year at least at 30. And so would the Yorks go for that? I don't think so. I don't think Hendrickson is a possibility at all. I think that their best shot is Kayvon Thibodeau. But because they play the Giants on November 2nd, the Giants won't trade Thibodeau before that game. Yeah. So he would be traded right on top of the deadline. The deadline is November 5th. So I think that I think Thibodeau is the one that makes the most sense because the Giants picked up his 2026 option, so you don't have a contract issue. And you can evaluate him over that course of this year and next to see if you want to keep him. And he's not that expensive. He's certainly not $30 million a year expensive. So I would let go of Hendrickson. I don't think that's a possibility at all. Yeah. But I think that Thibodeau is a possibility. Jalen Phillips in Miami is a possibility.
Yeah, you've talked about
that. And probably those two. Otherwise, I'm not sure that they even make a move because contractually,
I feel like they definitely need to make a move, Tom. Don't make me mad. Don't make me mad.
Yeah, well, they could. It's just that I'm saying that you have to thread the needle. You have to say that, okay, what are we willing to give up? What are the Yorks willing to pay in contract going forward for that player? Only when both of those are a positive can you make a deal. And I think that can happen with Thibodeau. That can happen with Phillips. It can't happen with Hendrickson.
Agree. Thank you so much for the insight, Tom. This is a great
Thanks,
show
Ashley.
all around. We talked for about 30 minutes longer than we normally do, but I feel like we had so much to say about each topic. Like I said, if you guys want even more in-depth than our show, Tom wrote an article that a lot of this show came from. I'll be going live after the game on Thursday. I'll probably be going live tomorrow too, just since it's a shorter week. I want to give you guys the final update on injuries and everything going into the game.
Cool. Good.
So, thank you guys so much. Someone predicts that Purdy's going to have a rushing touchdown against the Rams. I don't know if this is good or bad. I mean, they don't have a rushing touchdown yet, so they need one, but I don't know if I want Purdy running. So I kind of hope that this isn't true and that actually they just get Christian McCaffrey in there.
My guess is Purdy won't play.
Yeah, I also don't think so. But who knows? He might try to push for it. I don't think it's strategically the right thing to do, especially and I know football players don't think like this, but since I'm not a football player, it's a short week for them now. But if Brock Purdy sits out this week, he has a longer week to recover before Tampa. So I think it could be smart for him to really make sure he's ready to go for the rest of the year instead of just trying to continue to play through injury and making his injury worse and never fully recovering. And then by the time we see it's the middle of the season and his toe is all messed up still. I was going to say a different word.
Yeah. It's just, this is one of the steps in what they need to do. Again, it's just plan ahead, see the full season, value this season over the game.
Yeah.
When you do that, it means you don't play Brock.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. Please make sure to give me a like and subscribe. Like I said, I'll be going live a lot more this week. My favorite shows are always with Tom, so make sure you go follow him. And I just wanted to say thank you for everyone in the chat. We had a lot of heated discussions going on in there, so I always appreciate it. Thank you guys. Bye. Have a good Tuesday.